Annie Leibovitz is one of the finest and best-known portrait photographers of her generation. She began her career at Rolling Stone magazine while she was still in college during the early 1970s. As the magazine's chief photographer, her shots of rock icons like John Lennon and Yoko Ono have become indelible images of the period. In 1983, she moved to Vanity Fair magazine, where her reputation continued to skyrocket. Over the years, she's photographed everyone from Mick Jagger to Mikhail Baryshnikov. She's recently published a new collection of photos entitled Women. Several of the book's portraits are currently on view in an exhibition by the same name at the Corcoran Gallery in Washington, D.C. And I am pleased to have her here to talk about these photographs and this book. Annie Leibovitz, Women, Susan Sontag. Susan wrote the text.
Yes, well, she wrote the essay. Yes.
The essay.
Yeah.
How did this book come about?
Well, I was looking for a project to stretch, to something to delve deep into, and I was thinking about a book or a project on America, and it was really Susan's idea to do it on American women, and the more I talked about it, it seemed like a very exciting idea to everyone, and I decided to do it, but I was scared. I was scared I would fail because it's such a big project. I mean, it's such a big idea. Yeah. It's where do you begin? How do you start? I mean, everyone I knew thought it was a wonderful idea, but where do you start? And it turned into something. After the first 10, 20 pictures, I knew there was something there that I'd never seen before.
And what do you think that was?
I've never seen such diversity. I've never seen such. I mean, it's interesting. I've said this before, but I don't think I learned anything new about women at all. But nothing that I didn't know. But to see it as, as a collection, to see, women today side by side. Susan touches on it a little bit. I mean, she says that in her essay that it's the first time that women have ambition. That they mind. But what I saw in those first few shoots, it was just powerful. It was just the diversity and the, it was very emotional. It's.
Because of the gender, because of the subject, was this a different project for you than anything you'd ever done?
Only in that it was a theme and that and it was a collection of under that theme, but there really isn't any difference photographing, men from women. I mean, and that is also what is really, what was really extraordinary about the book is that it really brought out, to me, it was less about gender than it was about individuality, and that I began to thrive on, and the project really sort of, was a work in progress, and as I worked on it, I really changed and molded it and directed it, and added things that I thought were needed. And
this is an interesting question for me, and I know it sounds simple when you ask it, but I hope it has more resonance. It is that when you are taking a photograph, these photographs, what does the photographer's eye see? What does the photographer's eye want to see?
Well, it's, as I just said, it has so much to do with each person. I mean, each subject is going to have a different, set of problems, so to speak. Let's take, for example, photographing my mother for this book. Knowing my mother, and it was uncomfortable because I knew in a certain way how she saw herself, how she imagined herself. I mean, I grew up in a family where, in all of our family pictures, no matter how dysfunctional we were or sad or depressed, my mother always smiled and stood up and was the only one in the picture really smiling away. And also my mother is in her middle 70s, and she didn't really want to appear, old, and she was, fearful, really, and so I had an agenda where it was important to me my mother looked her age for this book, for this project, and so that's a little little insight into what it is. I was very pleased with how it came out, because I think, but it was hard for her to look at the picture. She didn't really, like it at first. She likes it now.
She does.
She likes it
now.
now.
What changed?
I think a lot of
attention.
A lot of attention. When we were in Washington last week, I turned around at the opening of the show at the Corcoran, and I saw her signing books. So I.
Oh, is that right? Where did this passion for photography start for you?
I went to school at the San Francisco Art Institute as a painting major, right out of high school, right to school. And I took a night class in photography, and it was much the community in the photography department was much friendlier and much more sociable. This is really true. The painting department was it was during the Vietnam War, and everyone was angry, and the painting was all abstract, and when you're young, you still aren't ready for things to be abstract. You want to have things more concrete, and I think photography was much more satisfactory in that way. I mean, and it was immediate, and it was immediately gratifying, and it also having a camera was like having a friend. I mean, it was like you could go out and walk the streets and and feel good by yourself because you had a friend with you. You had a mission.
Has the experience simply reinforced the decision was right for you? I mean,
I hope so.
Well, okay, but I mean, you didn't wake up. Some people would wake up and say, "Damn, I wish I hadn't taken that road. It's a road not taken."
This has been an incredible ride.
It has, hasn't it?
This is like it's an unbelievable career, and that's exactly why I'm so proud of this project on women, because at this point, having worked for these magazines, first Rolling Stone and then Vanity Fair, I have the opportunity now to direct, myself, and so to do something like this was such a wonderful, gratifying experience, and when I was saying I was afraid, to begin with it, is that I didn't want to let women down. I didn't want. It was such an important. It meant so. I could see it meant something immediately to everyone I talked to, and I just really wanted to, not fail women. Fail us.
Well, you know that you didn't, don't you?
I feel really good about it. I think it could be. It's interesting. I think it could be 20% better. Probably, but it was interesting. I almost postponed the project. I almost, thought about pushing it back a year before publishing. And I thought about Gilles Perez and his, project on Ireland, and he's of course still working on it. 12, 13 years later, and where do you stop? Where do you stop? It's such a big project. I reluctantly stopped. And it could, obviously with something like this, you could have 10 more volumes. I mean, it's...
All right, let's take a look at some of the photographs, and we put these in an order that I think you wanted us to see them. No, it's a good point.
Okay.
You took the photographs. Just talk about, this is the...
This is Isla Borders.
Right.
And it's a great story because she played Little League baseball with boys as early as 10 years old, and as a child she just always wanted to play baseball, not softball. And her father actually helped her find a school that she was allowed to play on the boys teams, and this what's great about this is she fulfilled her wish. She is the first women pitcher on a men's
the entire season
team.
On a men's professional team, and this is what she said. I really think you captured it here because you can kind of see in my face that nothing is going to stop me. I am going to get there. Sort of says it, doesn't it?
Well, it's wonderful to photograph someone like Isla because she's, even though this is a set-up picture, she's doing what she loves. She's pitching. Over and over and over till I get this shot. But she's doing what she loves.
And did you know it when you had it?
When you do sports photography, it's very, very hard. You don't see the picture, in order to get action. I really admire real sports photographers, because it's really about, you know, timing, and it's you don't see the picture.
All right. Next one. Ann Richards, former governor of Texas, taken in 1992.
This is really a great story. You know, she was running for governor, and her polls were very low, and she was photographed at a duck hunt holding a gun, and suddenly her poll shot up.
Yeah.
The men in Texas were afraid that she was going to be, as a woman, she was going to be taking away, you know, their guns.
Right.
So, of course, she won, and she became governor. So once a year, she would just have a photo op where she invited photographers to, you know, to photograph her, basically holding the gun.
So she's not a hunter. She just is somebody who takes photos.
Well, you know, she's a pretty amazing woman. She said, you know, Annie, I could use this gun, you know, if I have to.
On whom?
Anything, anyone.
All right. The next one is Susan McNamara at Bally's Casino. She's a.
This is probably the most important set of pictures in the book. A set of showgirls that I did for the New Yorker, actually,
right. For Tina Brown.
And it really helped me. It propelled me into the book in a way where I thought, well, maybe, you know, I could do this. And it's just the women came in to the studio, you know, as they really were, and then I photographed them as showgirls, and I was so taken back at their appearance as they really were that I photographed them as they came in, and the contrast. I mean, the showgirl picture is really nothing.
It's extraordinary, isn't it? Yeah.
It's really nothing without the other picture.
Yeah.
So this Susan talks about this in her essay about women
have to dress up to be women.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. The next one is the rap artist Little Kim.
This is another example of Susan's essay where you know, a woman dressing up to be a woman. Sociologically, it's really fascinating because she is not only dressing up to be a woman, but she's dressing up to be a white woman with that blonde wig. I mean, it's kind of amazing.
She's part of the opening 6 shots that make up the prologue of the book.
It's like a prologue.
Yeah. I mean, here, obviously, this is what it looks like in the book.
The other thing that's fascinating now is that when we talk about women in the past, we talk about women were supposed to be looked at. And what's happening now, it's called the gaze, basically. And what's happening now is women are looking out, looking back. And I think that Little Kim does that also.
These are great. These are really quite amazing. Okay, the next one is Coal Miners, 1999. Where is this taken?
This was shot down in Alabama. It's about a half mile down in the ground, and this is like another, you know, heart-wrenching story because these women, they're all married. None of them went to college. The woman on the left, Shirley Hesh, she made it a point of telling me that she had put her 4 daughters through college by working in the mine, you know, for 20 years. So, you know, there was a lot of very emotional stories in the making of this work.
Now, where did you find them?
Well, you know, I still had my day job, which is, you know, working for Vanity Fair and Vogue. So I was actually going down to Alabama to do a cover shooting with Natalie Portman, and you know, I knew as I was doing the book, and I would sort of download the shoots that I wanted women in manual labor, and we started looking for mines, and we found a very friendly group of people down in Alabama who helped us set this up.
You want to see manual labor? We can show you manual labor. Now, you said download the shots. Is that a term of art having to do with the internet or something else?
Well, it was really, you know, coming back from a trip. I did 3 or 4 field trips into the country, Texas, and what I mean by download is as I came back, I actually used the computer to edit, and we, you know, it was a fast way at looking at things, and began to fall in love with the whole process. I mean, it was most of the editing was done through you know, before even getting prints made, just scanning the contact sheets into the computer. And
for you as the professional you are.
Yes. Yeah.
Has the technology of the camera changed much? I mean, I realize that for amateurs, all kinds of things, it's all, you know, point and shoot stuff, but.
Not much, not really that much. I mean, we have high-speed film. I mean, things are better. I'm surprised they're not better, period. And I'm not ready to go to digital, but I think that at some point, you know, it might happen. I think that film still satisfies a lot of things. But photography is quite interesting because everything that could be done with photography was done in the first 10 years, you know, by Nadar. So, you know, I've never been that interested in the technical end as much as I've been interested in the way, you know, how important it is, you know, to see, you know, and how you see. And I embraced that really early on because, you know, working for Rolling Stone, they you know, we all didn't know any better. And it really was just about what we saw rather than worrying about the technical end. I mean, I really, when I left Rolling Stone and went to Vanity Fair and finally had better paper to work with, I became a little more concerned about, you know, technique and of course doing it this long, you know, you know, I learned it, but it's so much not about that. It's really about, you know, it's about looking and having a point of view.
Okay. Next shot is Sigourney Weaver. Now, what is she?
What is she doing
What is
here?
she doing in this photo?
Well, she's
lying back on a couch, but what else?
No, this is what I love about this picture is this is a woman who's in her 50s and you know she's just 50 and she you know it's still all there and all very intact and I'm quite you know I think that's terrific and you know she's just a great role model because she's played these roles that are very strong.
Is it easier to work with someone who's used to playing characters? You know.
I think
what
you're really talking about is a professional sitter.
Yeah,
almost.
exactly.
I think that it has a different set of problems to it. You know, but I think someone like Sigourney really likes to be photographed and enjoys it. And this is quite obvious. I mean, this was actually the first Polaroid taken at the beginning of a 2-day shoot. And yes, this is
the first Polaroid?
Right, and it's this 665 Polaroid.
Yeah.
And I was just looking, I said, Sigourney, let me see if what you're wearing is going to work. And then I called her a couple weeks later and said, do you mind if I use that that photograph, the very first one, because you had no makeup on?
Yeah.
And she said, of course. No, I don't mind.
You know what is amazing? It just brings it home. The power of photographs. I mean, it's so much more powerful to see them in this book.
In the book.
Yeah, than see them through a television. Go ahead.
Well, I think in this case, you know, to have, you know, to have it as a series and be able to do a juxtaposition and have it as an album, I think the book is a wonderful format. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you have lots of photographs hanging up in your house, in your apartment?
I collect photographs.
For everybody, from Cartier-Bresson and everybody, huh?
Actually, Cartier-Bresson was the first. When I realized that I could afford the photographs of photographers I've always loved, that Cartier-Bresson was the first photograph I bought.
What was it?
It was the family on the side of the Seine having a picnic.
Yeah.
And I also bought the Matisse. But no, I collect photographs. I have a small little hallway where I don't hang anything. Nothing's hung. It's just kind of leaning and.
You don't hang anything.
Yeah, it's
just lean it up against the wall and say you belong here, and you know, somebody can pick it up and look at it closer if they want to. Yes.
Or I can move them around.
Yeah, you can. All right. The next picture here is Rebecca Dennison, Executive Director of an organization of women with AIDS called World.
This was actually done before the book, and I was doing a series for Vanity Fair on. People who were living longer, you know, with AIDS, and I had a very hard time finding women who were willing to pose. It seemed like even harder than men. Yeah. And this is a woman who directs a wonderful newsletter and agency out in California who agreed to be photographed. And I was photographing their board, and one of the women said, there was a group of women I was photographing, and one of the women said, well, I thought we were going to be able to get painted like Demi Moore.
Right.
And so I said, you want to do that? We can do that. We can try that. And so I lined them all these 9 women up with makeup artists, and they designed how they wanted to paint themselves. And this is the photograph of Rebecca. She's since have gone on. There's on her body. There's words, you know, of the women who have died and loss and. She really wanted to have children, and she has since gone on and had 2 healthy twin girls.
Wow, good story. The next one is, all of us were thrilled by this story. This is Osceola McCarty. She was a person who is a philanthropist. It turns out that she had life-saving $150,000, as I remember, from washing clothes for people, wasn't it?
She was a washerwoman for 75 years and
saved $150,000 and gave it to University of Southern Mississippi.
It's like one of those great stories of our time. I mean, it's when I arrived at her house, she was wearing her wig and her suit, you know, that she had sort of acquired since her, you know, her notoriety. And I asked her if she would put back on the clothes that she wears every day. And you know, it was again, it almost began to be a criteria. Whatever made you cry, you know, went in the book, and it's just a great story.
This photograph is the Kilgore College Rangerettes, right?
Right. This was done down in Texas. This is this group has been around. They're a very famous drill team from the 40s, and they had the same costumes, and that was an incredible shoot. They had a drill captain that said, "Okay, you know, go ahead, kick," you know, and they're famous for the kicks. This is what they're famous for, and you know, when they did the kick, the drill captain said, "Okay, wipe the lipstick off your legs," and it was such a.
The next one is Barbara Smith and Tammy Winfield, domestic violence.
This was I thought it was important to put in the book. This was a series I did on domestic violence and women, you know, victims, basically. The first woman, Barbara Smith, is actually still, I've just found out, is still living with, you know, her boyfriend who, you know, did this to her.
The violence.
And this is kind of an interesting problem. And then the other woman, actually, Tammy Winfield, is actually an activist and speaks out. I mean, this again was very hard to get women who would actually sit. So I think they're
to get them to sit
for a portrait, only because they live in fear of retaliation. And this is brand new for women to actually you know, speak out now and object. And I mean, you know, for many centuries, it was like something that was just seemed to sort of come along, you know, go along with the territory of, you know, that you weren't supposed to speak out. So this is, you know, to me, they're very brave to sit, you know, for this picture.
Next photograph is Hillary Clinton, taken in 1998, appeared in Vogue when you.
This was part of the Vogue cover shoot. That was a last-minute decision to make it a Vogue cover shoot, but it in the middle of all that, you know, those impeachment proceedings and everything. But it really was the book shoot. Mrs. Clinton had agreed to sit for the book, and it became the Vogue cover shoot. But you know, I traveled with Mrs. Clinton a couple years earlier, to Africa, actually, and. I have to tell you, I was really impressed with her. I just think what she's been doing with these women's groups. She would go into a small town, a small village, and organize women to meet, and she would sit there and listen for 2 or 3 hours. They'd go around the table, and everyone have a chance to talk, and talk about their grievances. And I was very impressed with what she was doing.
And how was this staged much?
You know,
all your photographs staged a little bit.
You know, by the fact that you have an appointed time to go take someone's picture, and you don't have the opportunity to travel with them as much as you like. You know, and I do like to see what people are doing. And I think for someone like Mrs. Clinton, it was set up on the Truman balcony, but within that setup, you know, she said to me, "Do you mind, Annie? I have to work on my speech, you know, for tonight. Do you mind if I go ahead and work on my speech?" And I said, "Please go ahead." And you know, and that. So there's a reality within it.
I got you. I hear you. Two more: Christine Amanpour, Maria Fleet, and Jane Evans. They are journalist and camera woman.
It was taken actually in London, but this was just a portrait of Chris John, but this was Chris John's idea. I mean, this was her idea. She had said to me that did I know that she had an all-women crew that went into the Gulf War. They were the first all-women crew, you know, ever, and the only women to begin with, you know, at the Gulf War. And I said, well, let's let's round them up again. This will be great. And
Yeah, I think they're still together, as far as I know. I've seen them in other places.
Yeah, Maria Fleet, is still traveling with Christian. Yeah.
And finally, this is my last photograph. There's so many more, and I'd love to hear you out, but in the interest of time, you've already talked about this, but tell me about this photograph.
I think we did sort of talk about it.
I mean, what a face.
Yes. It's,
this is your mother.
it's my mother, yes.
And
yes.
well, it's just a great face. I mean, before I realized it was her, I thought I said, when I first saw this photograph, I said, this is Annie's mother.
It's really.
And yet, I didn't know, because it doesn't say it on the photograph.
I put it at the beginning because it's sort of a dedication, in the book of a kind, and also I thought she was the first woman I met. So
yeah, but also this is kind of nice too, isn't it? Look, I mean, the notion of this page and the page together. This is the best thing you've done, you think?
I think it's the best thing I've done, and I'd like to do more of this. It's really. It was so gratifying, and it was a privilege to meet these women and work with them, and it was hard, really hard to do, but it's just so it's just so incredible and powerful to me. I think we're so inundated with celebrity, it's just a little too much, and I think. I miss a kind of a balance, and I think that this is sort of crawling back towards that balance and looking at every woman.
Annie Leibovitz, Women, with essay by Susan Sontag, an extraordinary book. We'll be right back. Stay with us.